Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Community Campfire. I am Mod Doom, your community manager, and I am delighted to be joined by an institution of RuneScape, a lore master, Mod Raven. Welcome on, and it is so good to have you with us. Hello. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm not sure how I feel about being referred to as an institution, but I will go with it. But I'm good. I'm working my way through all of the text in the world, but I'm good.
Yes. For those of you who aren't aware, Mod Raven is responsible for all of the journal entries and lore and texts and everything?
All of the journals, lore scraps, dialogue. Basically anything to do with story is my fault, including the ones where players have sent me pictures just saying, "Is the journal writer okay?" So that's my fault.
Yes, yep. That wellness check confirmed. Mod Raven is okay. Believe it or not,
given value of okay.
We've checked. We have checked. Trust us. That's as good as it gets. Anyway, we wanted to go through some questions. We recently put out a call in the Dragonwilds Discord server for questions from you, our lovely community, and we've grabbed them in no particular order. So, jumping in, numero uno from Anaviancy, not a specific one. Just Anaviancy.
One of the many.
They want to know, are there any plans to tie lore established in Dragonwilds back into RuneScape? Maybe things like Garua's Slayer tasks or references to Lugrim or Culdra. And also, this question came up like 8 times, but I'm putting it right at the start, as they also asked it. Where is Ashenfall in relation to the mainland?
So, I'll do the question about tying things back into the games. So that's not really my decision as such. However, I do work quite closely with the Lore Council on RuneScape, which includes people who are involved in both games. And we do talk back and forth about how we can tie things in, what things we could potentially bring in. It's not always possible or easy because of the natures of game development, what requirements are, but we've certainly had discussions about how we might use things in both games. I have actually we've already got some Dragonwilds references into RuneScape 3. Lucrusa, one of the Dragonkin from Dragonwilds, is mentioned in one of the lore books, which sort of helped to sort of set up some of the lore tie back in with things. And we have spoken about how we might use other things. I'm not going to talk about any specifics because I don't want to ruin things for the RuneScape teams, and they may not necessarily be able to use them. It's very early stages at the moment, but we do have a back and forth. They are canonically in the same universe, and they do follow together. So hopefully, but I make no promises.
I can confirm. I sit next to Mod Shrike in the office when I am in the office. And every now and then I'll look over and I can just see a motley crew of the narrative folks across JX. I'll see lots of like Mod Ed, Mod Raven, Mod Shrikes, and then Mod Rowley. And whenever I take my headphones off and that call is going on, chaos. I can never guess what's what comes out during those conversations. I don't know what you get up to in there, but
madness,
you all
I
talk.
think is the answer. Madness.
We're all mad here.
Controlled madness, towards a useful narrative goal, but definitely madness.
In service of a singular purpose, but that is generally just chaos.
Yes, and as it should be. As for the other part of the question, so canonically, Ashenfall is to the north of the RuneScape mainland. I know some people know that I would have preferred it to have been in a different location, but we'd already announced it, so we're rolling with it. But actually, I've been thinking about this, and it does kind of make sense for what we've got. So it is to the north. It's hidden off out the way. It is literally hidden. It's got a veil that hides it. And the nature of Ashenfall is interesting in what we can do biome-wise, because the way that the anima twist works means that you can have multiple different biomes in the same location. So whilst I'm sure some people have gone, oh, it doesn't make sense for it to be the north because it would have X, Y, and Z climate. That is technically true if it were following the normal patterns. But the nature of the wild anima, the strange resonances, also the veil, which sort of locks things inside, causing almost like a magical greenhouse effect, causes it to have completely different setup. So it's the strange climates and everything we can do a lot more with. So I'm going to leave it canonically to the north as originally suggested, but you can see how the magic and stuff would make it interesting and change. And that's one of the things that makes Ashenfall like fascinating to some of the people coming to explore it, right? Because it shouldn't work, it doesn't always make sense, and yet there it is and functional.
I love the mental image of this just being a great big Gothixian greenhouse. He's like, right, that'll survive in the winter. I'm
Pretty
off.
much
That'll be it. That'll be fine. And you know what? It works.
And yeah, and definitely there were definitely no problematic side effects of having this big veil over this island this continent when something bad might have happened. Definitely caused no side effects.
Putting it in a pressurized container would be absolutely fine.
Just be careful drinking the water.
It's got more culture than some Discords I've been in.
Oh, very good.
Okay. Right, before I ostracize myself from any more communities. Our next question is from Snuios. That's a terrible pronunciation. I do apologize if I've done that completely wrong. Who asks, will any of the new or future lore created for Dragonwilds be referenced back in OSRS or RS3 as Easter eggs or perhaps even full quests in the future?
So that's kind of what we just answered earlier, wasn't it? About the nature of them tying back into the thing. So kind of the same answer. Like, it's up to those teams whether they do. I'd love it to, and I will happily work with any of the teams that would like to bring it in. And we do, I said, we discussed them already. We have lore conversations going on. So I would expect some tie-in. If you want to see particular races and stuff be brought into the mainland, then petition those teams and let them know that I'm more than happy to help them out. They just need to poke me, and I will, info dump on them everything about all the lore they could ever possibly want. So if you want to see Garou in old school and RS3, suggest it to them, tell them to talk to me, I will tell them everything.
Yeah, very politely ask. Do not yell at your nearest JMod that you want Garou, because some of them, bless them, haven't played Dragonwilds yet, and they'll be like, what's a Garou? And you have to be like, not much, what's a Garou with you? And then you have to go through the whole conversation with them. But yes, so it's a possibility, but that's very exciting. Our next question comes from Kepler, who asks, hey Modraven, do any of the character names refer to or are inspired by certain NPCs in RS3 or OSRS? I'm thinking that hockey sticks in Dragonwilds may be a reference to cake meeks, as both were druids who experimented with different herbs and flora, but was wondering if there are any other examples. Thanks.
So this is an interesting one, because that is the naming convention of druids. You try and have that kind of X type sound to it, but you could connect it to something else like cake mix, hockey sticks. We've got Betamax, I think, and pickup sticks, I think, is another one. And it's that kind of naming thing. It's the typical RuneScape sort of silly joke. So it's not specifically based on them. But it does follow that naming convention, and we'll be using like naming conventions and other things going forward. If we mention White Knights, we'll have terrible puns based on Sir, and so forth. So there will be some things that will take some inspiration from, and we may yet incorporate specific lore or characters from the other games, but due to the nature of where Ashenfall is and how it's hidden, it'll be quite tricky to make some of the well-known ones fit in, because of course they're more recent and it's been hidden for a couple of thousand years. I say many thousands of years.
Just a light countless thousands.
Just a light ridiculousness, yes. Yep.
Just a few casual eons between.
Indeed. I mean, RuneScape's the way that sort of Gillenor operates in time is always a bit strange, because in the time frame, I did a look at sort of RuneScape stuff, and in the time frame of all of the real world sort of recorded human history, it looks like RuneScape fashions haven't changed. They've stayed the same for not hundreds, but tens of thousands of years.
Look, if it works, it works.
Well, indeed. Time is
everyone wants green top, green trousers, brown boots. Obviously. It's a look. It's a look, and it works. So fair play to them. All right. Speaking of eons past, deep history.
Yeah.
We have a question from Kaitil Seren, who asks, while Gielinor was the most perfect creation of the Elder Gods, what made the Anima of Ashenfall be so twisted that even Jazz and her sisters could not stand it?
So it's not that the anima is poisonous or corrupted. It's not even that they couldn't necessarily stand it. What Ashenfall operates as is kind of like a filter. So when the Elder Gods nom 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 munch on the anima, they like it purified. So we talk about a concept of anima taking on resonances. So when it passes through certain elemental things or into plants or living beings, it takes on resonances based on them. So if it goes through a large area of fire, it may take on a fire resonance, etc. But the anima itself is a pure thing, and the Elder Gods want to consume the purest of the stuff. They want to take it without any of that resonances on. So when they have anima that is particularly full of a particular resonance, they send it up through the anima vent, which filters out some the really strongly resonant stuff, which they would consider corrupted or tainted, and then that passes out back into to Ashenfall and is spread along around. Now normally it would go out across the whole world. It would just spread like into the atmosphere, water droplets turning into steam and spreading out. But because Ashenfall is under the veil, it instead, again, we have this greenhouse effect of magic, of like it goes out but a lot of it gets sort of reflected back in, which causes Ashenfall to have a kind of interesting effect. Now things did twist early before Guthix put the veil on it. It took them longer and was less overt, and you needed to take a long time of absorbing those resonances, which is what caused the amalgamated. But the veil has certainly made things worse and more overt now.
There we go. I knew we were going to get a crunchy answer, a technical, very in-depth answer. As soon as I saw this question, I was like, as soon as I saw Jazz and Elder Gods mentioned, I was like, here we go. We're going to get, you know, I was going to say celestial with it. It's going to get very cosmic and enormous in scale. From the cosmic to the divine, a question from Sins, who asks, will Brassica Prime be in the game? I believe there are already some allusions, but what do you say to that, moderator?
So obviously Brassica Prime is the best god with the best voice actor of all time. Brassica Prime will be referenced. There are several journal entries that do hint towards them and mention them, and we might throw in a line of dialogue here or there, but there's no real intention to make them like a major character in Ashenfall. It's the sort of the wrong tone. Like, comedy is obviously important, but Ashenfall's got a more serious survival nature, and Brassica is inherently kind of ridiculous. But we may yet bring them in the right scenario, maybe at the right time of year. It's still a possibility, but it's not currently on the plans to have them physically in world. But read your journals, read your lore entries, and you may get something.
There we go. I know at one point, bit of a behind the scenes here, but there was at one point there was going to be the blessing, a blessing of Brassica or something. There was like a very early idea of what was going to be a skill spell of just cabbages everywhere.
Divine cabbages.
Divine cabbages. That was it. Was cabbage rain, and there was a chance to get a divine cabbage, which obviously I love. As a Brassicae, I don't know what the collective noun of Brassica followers would be. What's the collective noun for cabbages?
Yes,
I knew this was gonna be where this Q&A was going.
A patch.
Yes. Join the patch. That's incredible. Yeah, there we go. The collective that supports Brassica, join the patch. I think we get too close to Cabbage Patch Kids, so we'll get some lawyers knocking at our doors. Moving swiftly on before legal starts telling me to cut the feed. We've got a question from Fixie, who asks, is there anything you can share about Armadyl's time on Ashenfall and what he might have been doing? And there's a second question here, but we'll break this up into two. So we'll firstly, is there anything you can share about Armadyl's time on Ashenfall and what he might have been doing?
Okay, so I've noticed this is a slightly poor wording on my part, one of the journals, but Armadyl himself wasn't on Ashenfall. but a contingent of his followers were on Ashenfall. So they all arrive there, and they normally arrive there as that kind of alliance, right? Bandos had brought them. Well, they came along in their normal things, and Bandos was trying to build alliance with them because he wanted to take out the Gauru, particularly Lugrim, because he had a personal beef with Lugrim over a really petty slight. But that's who Bandos is. And whilst the humans and the goblins all got kind of aggressive, the Aviansi, who encountered the Gauru and Lugrim, didn't really see any reason why they should get involved. Lugrim wasn't, in their opinion, wasn't a threat to them. The Gauru were, sure, they were predatory and hunters, but they weren't problematic from an Aviansi point of view. Aviansi themselves were already, were hunters as well. They would quite happily fly and shoot things with their bow, and the Garu were ground based, so less of a problem. So the Aviansi decided not to involve themselves in the conflict, and they spread further off, investigating further into the mainland of Ashenfall. I'm not going to talk about specifics of what they get up to, because that might be lore that you will encounter going forward, and we're not complete by any stretch of the mile for Dragonwilds. There's a lot more to come, and so you'll be seeing some of this within that.
There we go. So expect more of more feathery shenanigans in the future. So remember to read your journals. There's always, wherever Modraven goes, feathery shenanigans follow. So another question from Fixie, who asks, how would the Veil have affected gods like Armadyl, who still live? For instance, how much would he have recalled about it in the Sixth Age upon his return? So I obviously, as we've established, Armadyl himself was not there. But how would the Veil hypothetically have affected gods on the planet?
Sorry, I just spoke over you there, but no. So it wouldn't have. So the Veil wouldn't have destroyed their memories or anything like that. They would have remembered it. Bandos would have remembered Ashenfall if he could be bothered to tell anyone about it. And the gods would have been aware of it, but chose, because they didn't know huge details about what the island actually meant or the kind of things there, they chose to ignore it because they had bigger fish to fry. And with something like Armadyl, he wouldn't have been affected mentally. We know gods have been on the island, their continent. We know that a god resided there, Lugrim. So it wouldn't really have had any major effect on them, I'm afraid. It wouldn't do anything interesting and spangly lore-wise. It might have been interesting to see one of the big gods up against, say, Culdra, the God Eater, but that didn't happen, so that's not something we need to think about too heavily.
I don't know how much more power scaling the title could be if the God Eater just kept
eating all the gods.
It sounds like you're just feeding gods to this dragon.
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, dear gods, please stop coming to my continent. Signed, the God Eater. Do they just get a little?
She'd be no, dear gods, keep coming to my continent. I need a nice, tasty snack. It's deliver meals. Yeah.
Yes. Do they get little stars above Cultra's badge for every god? like a football team jersey or something like that.
Something
Truly
like that,
terrifying creature. Our next question is from Ashen, who asks, are the team planning on adhering to the RuneScape lore, or are they looking to deviate from the existing lore to open up more creative, artistic opportunities for the devs to make something new?
So that's an interesting question, because I don't think the two are in conflict. So, to clarify, I'll do the first part of the question first about are we planning to adhere to RuneScape lore. So we are planning to adhere as close as we can to RuneScape lore, and we'll be taking elements that are canonical in both games as our foundations. In bits where they split, at the moment we're based following the RuneScape 3 storyline. Because we needed a time zone, and RuneScape 3 moves into the 6th age, whereas Old School is still in the 5th age, and I believe Old School still adheres to the rule of everything happens in the same day, and that's not useful for Ashenfall. So we will be using the existing lore, we're following it as best we can. Where the games then start to deviate, if each game were to do drastic things, say if RuneScape 3, which we're canonically following, decided to poison the atmosphere, We might be able to do something like that in Dragonwilds, but it obviously would require a hefty rewrite of everything in the game, which we may choose not to do if we don't think it would be an advantage. Similarly, if Old School were to kill Bandos too early, say he died in the somehow they go back and kill him in the Second Age or something, then we wouldn't retcon everything we've got to make it all fair. So we adhere as best we can, but there are certain points where we have to be our own game, just otherwise madness lies. But we can still adhere to all the existing lore. We can still adhere to all the existing characterization, everything, while still doing new, creative, interesting things. So that's why we've brought some of those elements into Dragonwilds. So we've got the anima twist, which is a unique part of the setting of Ashenfall, and that changes the environment, changes people, it changes things, and it brings in interesting new elements. We've got in the backstory, like the amalgamated, and you've got the political effects that would have, and the sort of sociological effects on the people at the time, and that ties into certain aspects of extremist Saradominist ideology, probably to an extent that even Saradomin himself wouldn't approve of. We also reference sort of Gothixian lore and styles of living, and we expand on existing lore about rune crafting. For example, Guthix discovered rune crafting on Ashenfall specifically because he learned how to take the elements out of the anima events and make things of them. So these are all ways of telling sort of new takes, new deviation, not deviations, but new expansions on existing lore, whilst telling our own thing. And then we start to bring in things like the Gauru, who are completely unique, but they do tie in back to certain things. Like there's the connection with Vanica and his werewolf heritage, and how that ties back into the Gauru. He's learning about his ancestors, that sort of primal blood within him. You've got Zanik, who is expanding on her own knowledge of things. She's learning about different goblins, different setups, as well as acting as like the emissary of the underworld, following on from where she's in RuneScape 3. But we're starting to tell new, different stories along those lines. And we've got our own characters as well. Like we've got, poor old Cathan. He's going to be involved a bit more in things going forward, so you'll learn more about him, you'll get more of a chat with him, etc. And then we've got all the other lore, the side lore, all the stuff in the journals, lore scraps, etc. So we've got plenty of stories that we can tell that will be creative, interesting, and different, but will still be true to both games.
For folks who are coming into this, who maybe haven't done every quest, who maybe aren't as far narratively, or maybe are playing through Old School, for example, and haven't followed the entirety of the story all the way through, can you give folks at home a little bit of a summary of where Zanik's journey has been and how Zanik has ended up here? Because within the community, seen lots of folks being like, is Zanik dead? And I understand where some of these points of deviation have come from, where understanding of some folks have seen her, if they play RS3, you see her in the last drop over in the city of and some people are like, is she gone, or is she? So if just help some folks at home, give us a bit of a brief update on the story so far, and how is she here? What is this thing doing here?
So Zanik is canonically alive and has been for the past, I think, 6 years in RS3, which means she's also alive in Old School. Zanik is a tricky character when it comes to state of existence. She dies in one of the quests in RuneScape, and gets better when she's resurrected by the Tears of Guthix, and that sort of leads her down that sort of path where the Tears of Guthix get infected by Bandos, who can use it to infect her and gain a bit of control over her, tying her into the prophecy that he's trying to use to return, which we touch on in the Goblin Diplomacy quest in Dragonwilds. After that, she lives a good, happy life until the Guthix dies and the gods return, and then Bandos comes back. And Bandos gets into a fight with Armadyl. Armadyl kills him, and his followers hold a grand tournament to see who will replace him as the next big high war leader, and Zanik is infiltrating this, paying attention, looking, seeing what's going on, and players have the option of whether to let her live or whether to kill her. And some players chose to kill her, and it definitely didn't choose to kill her just because they didn't like the new model, honest. So later in RuneScape, we have a point where we needed to use Zanik, but the binary nature of her existence meant that we needed to tie that up. So in Nomad's Elegy, I believe it is, canonically Zanik has died at that point. If she hadn't been killed, then the death of Bandos would have drawn the life from her anyway. So she ends up dead, and she ends up in the Bandosian afterlife. You rescue her and help her take out Nomad, who's doing a big, scary, bad thing in the underworld. And Ixlarin gives the option of resurrecting her back from the dead. And again, some players can still choose not to resurrect her, which is lovely, great, and slightly difficult. In more recent storylines, I say more recent, 6 years ago, in the Desperate Times quest, I think it is, Seren calls on a council of heroes and emissaries of the gods to try and work out how they can resolve the problem of Jazz, the elder god, saying, prove that life needs to be should be allowed to exist, or I will destroy it all. So they've got to try and think of a way to prove themselves worthy. And in that scenario, because Death and Ixalan are too busy with dealing with, well, death, they bring Zanik back to life, canonically now for everyone, regardless of the stage they left her in before, as a emissary of the underworld. So she is now alive, and she is working both for herself as an adventurer, but she's also working on behalf of the underworld as kind of like an ambassador. So she will occasionally be doing little odd jobs here and there, which is why we use her in certain quests going forward. That I won't talk about because you'll have to play them. But they are mentioned, they are talked about, is used as part of it. So canonically, right now, Zanik is alive, and she's an ambassador rather, of the underworld. Hope that it's a bit convoluted, but I hope that's clearer now.
She got let go with a warning, and now she's like, well, I may as well use all this and see what's going on. And,
something like that, yeah. I mean, it was never her fault that she died.
No,
she never
exactly. She's just been roped into all of this shenanigans and
other nasty people to death. Yeah,
it's all Bandos's fault.
It is.
That we should get that. That should be the franchise motto, is RuneScape,
just a
and then
slogan,
scroll underneath it. It's all Bandos's fault. If he just chilled out, we'd have a much nicer time. Anyway, we've massively deviated, so I'll try and... I have careened us off topic, so it's my job to steer us back. So, we have a question from Sins, who asks, we have seen Anima-infused bark in the same way that we've seen it in old school, but that was exclusively through forestry, where you're becoming closer with nature. What makes Ashenfall closer to the Anima Mundi in a way that makes the mainland require nature spirits to be there? What's the distinction here?
So it's not so much the nature spirits angle. So this again harkens back to what makes Ashenfall unique as a continent compared to everywhere else on Gillinor, which is that it is the place where the elder gods funneled out the extra anima. So some of that anima will be resonant with nature. Nature means nature magic, all that kind of thing. So it's just that the anima itself is harmonized and emboldened this nature aspect that causes the anima-infused bark to grow. So similar in a way to spirits who have that strong tie to nature, have that connection to nature magic. They cause those effects on the trees and things to create anima-infused bark. In Dragonwilds, it just skips that middleman. It just pushes the energy straight through into the trees, which creates the anima-infused bark on the outside of them.
There you go. I will never look at the trees the same way. We have a question from 97 who asks, What's Wise Old Man's involvement here? What are his intentions? He's always a bit pesky and pondering things. He is a chaotic criminal. So what's the angle? What's he after?
So the Wise Old Man, he's your he set himself up nominally as in charge of the expedition. The expedition didn't agree to this, but how are you going to stop him? He is, what was it? Archangel Omega or something. I forget the term that the Temple Knights using him, but he is a terrifyingly powerful threat. So you're not exactly going to say no to him. So he saw the expedition flyers go up. He heard about it in the grapevine, and he was sat at home bored, thinking to himself, going, "New island, well, new continent. It's going to have interesting place, isn't it?" And he's like, "Oh, wait a minute. There may well be old treasures and riches, and I do need a new party hat." So he's basically here as a cash grab. He sees the opportunity in the expedition to Ashenfall. He sees a chance to earn the wealth that was denied him by being a good guy. And that's kind of why he's here. He's seeing what he can get out of it. But with all that in mind, whilst he is a bit shady, he does have this kind of, out for himself kind of aspect. He is still at his core a hero. He is he has protected Gielinor for many years. He's looked out for many people, and even Mike can be a bit grumbly about it. He has stopped some terribly dangerous threats in the recent years as well. So that's kind of what he's here for. He's here, officially it's for the loot, for the wealth, for the gold and the glory and the stuff. Unofficially, and perhaps deep down at his core and his heart, he's here because there is a danger that is Ashenfall. There's Culdra and the dragons, but the continent itself could be problematic. There could be something hidden within which could be dangerous if it went into the wrong hands. So he's here to make sure that it doesn't go into the wrong hands, and get rich whilst doing so. Things haven't gone exactly how he'd like. He was hoping to have a better setup. He was hoping to have a nice, comfortable sofa and a cup of tea while he ordered everyone around, but he'll make do with what he has.
Every friend group needs a let's just do this person.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're just stuck there being like, well, where do you want to go for dinner? I don't know. Where should we do we go out? Should we book something? Did anyone book a table? No. Wise Old Man has already blown the doors off of the restaurant and is already in there being like, quick, grab anything that's not sellotape down. And he's running out with the stove over his head. Somehow he's telegrabbed the stove and the kitchen staff are chasing after him.
That sounds 100% canon.
Yeah, get yourself a Wise Old Man friend, but don't get him because he'll take all of your valuables anyway. So we have a question from Kepler. Hi, Mod Raven. Can you tell us more about the Cabal, when they first formed, their purpose, and what led to the formation of the Cabal? Obviously, I appreciate some of this may be revealed in the future, so I don't want you to be handing over too much of the goods if you already have intentions of when you want to delve into this. But if we've got the capacity for it.
So obviously I'm going to be very cagey here because the Dragonkin storyline is going to continue in the background laws all across Ashenfall, across the Dragonwilds game is intended. So you will learn a lot of this at a very basic high level that I don't think is any kind of spoilers. Dragonkin from each of the Dragonkin creeds were finding issue and frustration with the way that their individual creeds were handling the situations they were in. So Ras then, who was the Surtees Dragonkin, she was frustrated with the way that her creed was getting angry and aggressive and wanting to destroy because they were siding with the elder gods and going to play their role by obliterating everything because Necrocertes is bad. And she didn't particularly like that approach. She didn't like the idea of being forced to obey the whims of the elder gods. She believed in her own strength, and so she found four others, well, three others, um, who agreed with her, and they started off just kind of chatting and ranting with each other about the nature of the world, putting all the things to right, until Lucressa convinced them they needed that fifth member, and Lucressa had a sibling who's Vika, who was born a seer. Seers are a bit of a different, unusual thing in Dragonkin, both biology and spirituality, I would suppose, who are not part of any clan because they exist. Their consciousness exists outside of time. They're known as the time swept. So they see both past and future at the same time, which makes them incredibly useful for a lot of the Dragonkin. And so culturally, they are taken outside of all the creeds, away from any kind of family units, and raised as seers to function for all the Dragonkin in kind of like a gilded cage scenario. They're looked after, but they're not free. And Lucressa, in a rare case of Dragonkin family bonds, because Dragonkin don't really do that, wanted to free their sibling. And so she encouraged all the others to help her to rescue them. And this is kind of, I won't go into huge details about the event, but this is what sort of kicks off these group of people's fleeing from the rest of the Dragonkin. And they made their way to Ashenfall, found the veil, slipped behind it, and realised that they were protected from the other Dragonkin by this veil. The other Dragonkin wouldn't find them, they could do their own thing, and they did what every Dragonkin does, which is let their ego get straight to their heads. Their hubris went wildly out of control, and this got even worse when Rastin found the way to harness the anima event. And then they did what they always do, which is begin the downfall of everyone by making dragons. And I won't go into too much detail beyond that. A lot of it, some of it you should be able to piece together now anyway, but we'll be expanding more on future storylines and whatnot. But that basically sums up kind of how they got together and how they started. They were outcast of Dragonkin society. They called themselves Mavericks, but however you want to name it. And they created, conflict between them and every other Dragonkin by rescuing Lucressa's sibling Vika.
A rare sibling moment.
Indeed.
I know that there's a connection as well with Lucressa to Zorgoth.
Mm-hmm.
Not in old school, as I know Zorgoth
RS3
is also name dropped in old school, but in RS3 Zorgoth is like, I think it's in Requiem for a Dragon. There's the reference to Zorgoth being like, right, well, Lucressa's gone off on this
exactly
expedition. Good luck. I don't know what's going to happen. Shenanigans is the answer. Is shenanigans.
The answer is indeed shenanigans.
All right. So, speaking of characters from RuneScape, we have a question from Avernic, who wants to know, with the thousands of characters in the RuneScape games, why are some a good fit for Dragonwilds and others not? What would you define as a good fit?
I mean, there are a multitude of characters. So we use some characters at the moment because of a variety of reasons. We didn't want to overload the initial game with a handful of characters, for example. We didn't want to with hundreds of characters. It would have been very confusing if you had every NPC that you've encountered in RuneScape. So if we had Brassica, we had the gods, we had all the things, like, it would be cool, but it would be overwhelming. And Dragonwilds is at its core, it's a survival game. And so we need to have that feeling of loneliness and isolation. So we had to handpick only a handful of people. And so we chose 4 people who were iconic and recognizable, but would fit neatly into what we wanted for their roles in the story and stuff going forward. Now that doesn't mean that no other characters would make sense. We've certainly got plans to introduce some well-known RuneScape characters in various forms into Dragonwilds as we go forward. I won't say who, but the criteria we need is relatively straightforward. Like, one, are they able to be used? Like, this is a quite important one. Like, if they're dead, we can't use them. If they're banished off world, we can't use them. So we couldn't bring the gods in, for example, without destroying the edicts again. So we can't use them. We can't use, Armadyl, Saradomin, that kind of thing. It's also like being dead is why we can't. Potentially being dead is why we're not using Bob the Cat, because Bob the Cat's died in old school. And as far as I'm aware, it hasn't come back to life. I could be wrong there. Then, so if they're even usable is question one. Next one is, do they serve a useful purpose in Dragonwilds? Like, would they help carry the plotline forward? Or would they be the best person used to tutorialize a certain new concept or idea brought into it? Would they be useful, or would they just sort of feel tagged on? And the final one is like relevance to the setting. So if it wouldn't make sense to bring characters who were locked to Spirit World. So as much as I'd love to use them again, I'm not sure Angoth from Tarthiad would make a huge amount of sense for Dragonwilds. We could potentially make her work, but she is kind of a Tarthiad character, so she'd probably stay on Tarthiad. Similarly, you've got characters like who's a good example? Adrastea, I suppose, again from RuneScape, because she's so busy on the RuneScape mainland. She's got so much stuff to do that it would make kind of odd for her to, come over to Dragonwilds. So those are the kind of main things. Like, can we use them at all? Would they add anything to at least the narrative, ideally the gameplay as well? And do they make just like sense for them to be there? But there are loads of characters I'd love to bring in. I'm not sure we'll be able to bring everyone in, but like we've got such a wealth of characters. I mean, like RuneScape 3 I'd love to bring in Thok. I don't think he makes a huge amount of sense for stuff we're initially planning, but he's a sort of perfect character to bring in for like grand adventure. Like I always loved writing Thok, and there's all manner of different things. And I'd love to bring in some of the sort of old school specific characters, give them that sort of Dragonwilds coat of paint, and see how we might use them. And we still be looking into how we might do some of those. Ideally, we're going to try and stick to characters that are in both games, so there's that familiarity. But we'll use the best characters for the roles, I think.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be any character you think of, big or small, someone will be like, I would love to see this character in the Dragonwilds art style, giving me quests, doing this, doing that. Obviously there's all of that appetite, that preference of, oh my God, I would love this. But there's also people at the complete other end of the spectrum who are like, get that rancid creature off my screen. I don't care for this character at all. And I don't care about this narrative quest line. I don't care about this storyline. I don't care about this character, whatever it may be. Less so of that, but it's more every character has someone who adores them and wants them. So it's always going to be a challenge. So we're always going to disappoint someone if they don't see their character. And also it's about finding the right fit. I would love Thok to be on Ashenfall, but I'm sure that he would only show up if there's an adventure involving lots of shenanigans and bravery and hitting things really hard and all that sort of business. And so finding those right fits is always going to be a challenge, but it is there is a lot here that gives us a blank canvas to introduce or expand on characters that might not have had their moment in the sun yet as well. So
I'll say, and sometimes the right thing for us to do would be to create new characters as well. Like,
absolutely,
we shouldn't discount that. Like Dragonwilds, like we'll try and use existing characters where we can, when it makes most sense. But sometimes you need someone new. You need that sort of new stories to be told. Now a lot of these are happening in the background, in journals, in lore kind of scraps and stuff. And obviously you've got the Culdra and the other dragon generals, and we've got Cathan as well, who's a new Dragonwilds character who helps sort of lead the story through. But occasionally we might want to look at characters that are from this setting.
Yeah, it's it's interesting as well, because I think obviously from the outset there was that conversation of, well, this person is the proxy through which a lot of the initial exploration happens, but they can't be there. So it's hard. You can't be like, it's, I don't know, Adrastea comes on the voyage. Oh, and then they have to meet a rather untimely end. So I'm sure that the Law Council would not have been too thrilled if the wise old man had bought the farm.
Well, this is the other thing as well. Like, we need to make sure that the characters, like, that we can steal them away.
It makes sense that they have to be away from the mainland for a little bit. Exactly. And of course, we need you to. It's a Mod Raven special. Someone has to die. So, sorry, we need a volunteer. And Cathan was the last person to put his hand up to be not it. He was too busy writing in his journal, being all excited about the future, and then he was looking wistfully away in the distance, and he was like, "What did I miss?" And that was it. Unfortunately, he was nixed. So there you have it. That was the last question that we've gone through. There were lots of lovely questions from other folks that were more about game updates and our direction in general, and lots of other stuff that we're going to be sharing more about in the future. Anyway, more generally, we're going to be sharing lots of stuff about work in progress stuff. Lots of questions about things like gameplay systems and mechanics. We will be getting into those in more detail, of course.
Yeah, you want other people to know about those.
I'm not going to drag Mod Raven in here and be like, so how is rune crafting gonna, and you're just like, I will write the journal entry, I will make it work. Do not ask me to design this. You may as well ask me to design it. I don't know what I'm doing here. I just post things on Reddit. That's my job. So I'm not going to touch those questions with a 10-foot pole if I can help it. So we will be certain to reshuffle some of those into the deck, and when we put out the next call for questions, be sure to throw them in there as well. But for now, I wanted to say thank you so much for joining us, Mod Raven.
Thank you.
This has been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sure we'll be doing another one of these again in the future. I want to say thank you to everyone watching at home, whether you're having us up in the background as our second screen content while you're AFKing or whatever you may be doing, or whether you're enjoying us as your main monitor content, in which case I'm so sorry. Then thank you so much for being with us. We'll be sharing more about our upcoming updates very, very soon. So keep an eye out on Steam, on Reddit, on Discord, and all of our socials for more. And until next time, we will speak to you very, very soon. See you at Ashenfall. Bye.
Bye.